much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here for another session in our ongoing webinar series, and we're especially thrilled about today's topic and the incredible panel that has been assembled. Before we dive in, I do want to extend a big thank you to Tyler Technologies and Maine Health for making this part of our webinar series possible and for their continued support of workforce development and education here in Maine. We also have a few exciting events coming up that we'd love for you to check out. Tomorrow, we're going to get outside for our kayaking and networking event at the Nonantum and Kennebunkport. Next Tuesday, we'll be hosting our Winding Career Paths webinar, where we'll explore how professionals have navigated unexpected or nonlinear career journeys. And also next Wednesday, we're heading to USM for Headshots and Handshakes, a free event offering professional headshots and a chance to connect face-to-face with employers. My colleague Ava will be dropping some registration links in the chat throughout this session. Now, let's get on to our main event, our panel. Today, we're spotlighting professionals working in analytics and data science across industries like healthcare, enterprise tech, education, and even industrial automation. Each panelist brings a unique lens to how data is transforming their field. Moderating today's discussion is Dylan Bulmer, a software engineer at Covetrus and an active Project Login advisory board member and a proud former Maine Career Catalyst intern. We're thrilled to have Dylan here, not just as a tech professional, but as somebody who's been through the whole Educate Maine journey. Joining Dylan are Matt Jones, product manager at Tyler Technologies, where he helps build software and services that support government agencies and school systems across the country. Jamil Moella, a research data analyst, one at Maine Health, working in the Center for Health Improvement. Jamil uses data to drive innovation in healthcare, and like Dylan, is also a former Maine Career Catalyst intern, so we're especially excited to have him back with us in this new role. John Harrington, co-founder and chief product officer at HighByte, where he's helping organizations unlock the value of their industrial data using cutting-edge no-code tools. And Andrew Kinley, assistant teaching faculty at the Root Institute, teaching in the MPS Analytics program and bridging the worlds of higher education and real-world application. Thank you again to all of our panelists for being here. We're grateful for your time and insights today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dylan.
All right, thank you. Today we'll be kind of diving into data science, what data science is, and to kind of explain what that is, I want to start with Andy and ask, to start us off, how would you define data science as someone who's never heard of it before?
Thanks, Dylan. You gave me the impossible question to ask, because this is something that continues to be ill-defined, and it's, you know it when you see it. And so I thought about this, and I could talk for the next 2 hours on this topic, and I love this question. The world is full of data, right? I mean, an enormous sums of data, starting in about 95 to today. Data has increased at an exponential, rate. I was hearing Jamil in Maine Health. When Obamacare went into effect, it required electronic medical records, and the amount of healthcare data just went up 10x every year. And so what is data science? Data science is, how do we get a handle on this? How do we leverage all of this stuff we have saved on our computers to make decisions about going forward? This could be at LL Bean. How many more shirts do we order next month to have in our store? That could mean how effective is a given drug that we want to put onto the market. And even, in the case of education, is what we're doing in education working? So all of these things, data is a vehicle to help look at these questions, and start to answer questions and maybe make predictions. And so that is sort of the big picture. On the smaller, it's a set of tools. Everyone knows about Excel, and it grows from there. It's a set of algorithms. People may have heard of regression if you're taking a stat class, and it just grows from there. And it's learning all of these skills, how to apply them to a given problem and solve them. And then ultimately, and this may come into something I may talk about later, it's communicating that information. And this is really where I land on what separates a good data analyst, data scientist from anyone else, is the ability to communicate. If someone like John at HighByte comes to me and said, I have a question, I need to understand his question, and answer in a way that he feels like he understands, what he wanted to know. And I didn't go off in some other direction. I didn't direct him in a way that I wanted to go. So it's really learning how to communicate, translating the questions, sort of into actionable insights. And again, that's, here I am at the Rue Institute, and that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to create this next generation of analysts and scientists to go into these companies where every single one of them has so much data. And I hope I get to talk about a few of the examples that are pretty cool later on. So that's the 2-minute overview, Dylan. I know we were all pressed for time.
Oh, I know. Thank you for that answer, Andy. I guess kind of going more into like what types of problems can be solved in data science. Matt, would you be willing to kind of describe some projects or like how you can solve problems with data science? You're muted, by the way.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Absolutely. So I manage a priority-based budgeting AI product for Tyler Technologies. And we solve a wide range of problems from predicting program inventory and kind of cost allocations for those programs. But the interesting part, with the tool for me and this product here is that we've got machine learning and we're basing what we promote or what we push to new potential clients in terms of program inventory. Like we base it off of what other like size client bases that we have done in the past. So if you're somebody that's new to this and you've never gone through this process, we can come into the implementation process and say, okay, you're about the size of the city of Dallas. So, we can offer programs that are, consistent with like sized other municipalities. So that's all because we have access to that data and we have the ability to size those municipalities and kind of conduct our machine learning based off of those sized. So we're always comparing the right size client base when we're doing predictions.
Dylan, you're now muted.
Of course, I'm really good at this. John, is there anything you want to add to that? That's like problems that you solve with data science because you run a company that's all about data. So
yeah, I run a company or am part of a company that is all about leveraging data in manufacturing. So manufacturing companies. So we're a software application, but we talk with a lot of people within the manufacturing industry, specifically large global manufacturers in the automotive and pharmaceutical and food and beverage, and many other subsectors. But everyone's trying to be more efficient. Ultimately, they're trying to increase their sales and increase their profits. And so they're trying to put out more product with fewer people, with less resource, with less waste. And so being able to measure that and then identify bottlenecks and identify problems and then solve those problems and then continue to measure that is what all of our customers are trying to do. So we see a lot of that. We see use cases that span everything from improving quality to improving supply chain performance to reducing asset downtime, which then leads to line and plant downtime. So really wide range of use cases all around just trying to optimize. And many companies many manufacturing companies have initiatives to do this, but their challenges trying to understand data and understand what they can do and what they can do quickly.
perfect. Jamil, I know that you've kind of like just started your role in the past couple of years. My question for you is, what does your typical day-to-day look like, and do you tend to collaborate with others outside of the data analyst, data science realm when you do your job?
So I'm at Maine Health, and so I was an intern last year, and I think my job is hugely contingent on collaboration. We have so many different teams in Maine Health. Yeah, for example, I work with like the rural maternity and obstetrics team. I have behavioral health, Center for Tobacco Independence. A lot of these teams are government funded, due to grants. So my job as a community health intern or full-time now is I work with these teams. If they have projects to do, like certain like analysis, cleaning, presentations, I help out. My day-to-day kind of starts out. So I work virtually. My job is hybrid, but I work virtually now. And in the morning, I check my emails, I check my team to see if anyone needs any help. Every Wednesday, I send out data reports of different providers in Maine, just prescription reports. But this summer I have a bunch of like 8 projects, and so my latest project was psychosocial evaluation with cancer for the Maine Cancer Society in Maine. So you have different people, different groups come up to me or come up to my team saying that, hey, we need some reporting done, some slides of dice reporting done. If anyone is familiar with Epic. But yeah, I think collaboration is a huge part of my job. I think that's what keeps my team going, because there are a lot of people in Maine Health need that analysis and they can't have the applicable skills to do that or do so. So they call us up to kind of help out the data part. And I love my job, so I can't complain.
Perfect. And what kind of do you work on a team? Like, how big is that team?
My team's about like 12. So we have around like 10 analysts. So last year, one of the analysts became a program manager this year. So she switched her roles. So I became an analyst. Last year I was an intern, but I felt like I was more full-time because of my workload. Now that I'm an analyst, I got a lot more on my plate, but I love it. I love my job, and I think I would prefer a smaller team due to the camaraderie and the teamwork that's instilled within the team. It's hard to hear me. You guys hear me now? Is it everything? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you much better now. It
I think so.
Through.
I think I'm swinging away from the camera. I think my team is smaller, but I do love the small environment. I think the camaraderie and the closer bonds, the tight-knit bonds you can create in a smaller environment is better. I think it's a little bit more personable. So like I can talk to on teams like, hey, I need some help with this project. Do you need help collaborating? Like as an intern, I will always kind of initiate like, hey, like, do you need help with this project? I can help you out, take the workload off you. And so I think a small team is a little bit better. You get to know everybody from face value. So yeah, but I really enjoy what I do as an analyst.
Yeah. And Matt, over at like Tyler Tech, how big are the teams over there that kind of work on data science type projects?
Yeah, sure. So it ranges depending on what the product is and kind of what the need is. I can tell you that my team is, I want to say, so my team's a little bit interesting. At Tyler, most of our stuff is kind of homegrown. This is the one product that we recently acquired about 16 months ago that's has an entire development team based out of Bulgaria. So my development team's in Bulgaria. There's about 19 resources there. And then my customer success team is in Colorado and New Mexico. So day-to-day type stuff is not typical for me because of the time difference. Bulgaria is about 7 hours ahead. So oftentimes I'll start my morning at 4:30 or 5. But that's just to make sure that everybody has the information that they need. And that's kind of what I would echo with regards to the last statements there, is working across, collaborating with others outside of the data science space. We're making sure that folks have access to data that they need. We're working with sales, I'm working with development, I'm working with quality assurance, I'm working with customer support, all the different facets of an organization, in order to produce this data or in order to analyze this data. Some of us are in the realm of producing it. Some of us are in the realm of extracting it. Some of us are in the world of analyzing it. But there's a lot of space in there to do some really neat stuff, and a lot of tools that are out there to help kids to be able to focus on that, or somebody that wants to take this on as a particular career trajectory. This wasn't a career trajectory for me, 20 years ago when I graduated from school. So it's neat to see, and there's certainly a need for it. But that's what I would say, kind of the ranges for teams, just to answer your question, between, I would say, 8 and 16 are generally traditionally your team sizes, depending on product or what department you're in.
Yeah. Similar, like I work in engineering, of course, and I always work with my data teams pretty closely. So there's always collaboration from that point of view that everyone else has been saying. Andy, I saw that you do research in storytelling with data. Like, can you explain what this is and what that's about?
Well, sure. This kind of ties into what I said before with communication, right? I mean, data is ultimately, we can crunch the numbers, we can gather the data, we can do all the pieces that Matt was saying that's critical. But in the end, we have to communicate that data. We have to craft the story of the data. And, you know, I don't think this will come as a surprise to the panelists, but maybe some in the audience. Data lies, and people lie with data all the time. They make up a story that the data seems to reflect, and it's not true. And so there's an example that I use that a lot of people may understand that I use in my introductory class to really kind of bring this storytelling home. I tell a story about the Maine SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test. And did you know that in the state of Maine, our average SAT scores are 46th in the nation? We are the 46th. We are at the bottom of the barrel in terms of our average SAT scores. Yet, in the state of Maine, we are a top 5 state for money spent per pupil in our elementary school system. And boy, is this a fun story to tell, right? Because I can go, it says, oh my goodness, everything we're doing is wrong, right? All these interventions. And then states like Mississippi are in the top 10 in SAT scores, and they're not known for investing in education. And so here I am telling a story. And when I tell this in class, everyone's a little bit uncomfortable, everyone's a little bit horrified. And then I start to add in one more data point. And the data point is in Maine, 98% of high school juniors take the SAT. In Mississippi, 6% of the juniors take the SAT. Which 6%? The ones that want to go to Harvard and need the SAT, so their scores are higher. And in Maine, everybody, whether they want to go to college or not, the state used to pay for it. And so it was a benefit that everyone would just have this barrier to higher education removed from them. And so in there now, I've gone 180 degrees on the telling of this story. I have another example. I could tell stories all day. I have an example about the 1987 Major League Baseball season. And the number of home runs hit in that year was exorbitant. And was it a statistical anomaly? Or was there a juiced ball used in that season? You can research it. And I can tell that story both ways using data. And I believe there was a juiced ball, by the way. I don't think it was intentional, but I think there was something different about the balls that year that made even a hitter like Wade Boggs, us old guys can remember, had his career high in home runs that season. And so I want people to learn how to craft stories that are persuasive, that are compelling stories, but also tell the truth. They don't try to hide things, which I think we get into a world with media these days where we often try to obscure data points. And I know in the interest of what John and Matt are doing, telling the right story is critically important because that's dollars on the line. So that's a little bit of what I'm talking about.
Okay, that's like a perfect segue to my next question for you, which is have you worked on a project before, a research project where the data kind of surprised you, came out with a different outcome than you had expected?
So a couple of things on that. Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic. There's never a data project that I do that I'm not surprised. And so first, you have to go in again with no expectations of what the result is. Again, I'll beat a little bit of a drum here, right? If you took psychology in college from about the year 2010 before, you learned about all of these studies, like the Stanford Prison Experiment, about, all these other ones, and they're all wrong. Turns out all of these studies are wrong, or really, they're just not right, right? The science was done poorly, the stats were done poorly, and to really know, they'd have to redo them again and see if they got the same result. Another one is like the marshmallow test. They wanted a result and they got the result they wanted. So you got to go in with no expectations. Again, the SAT thing was very surprising the first time I discovered that story. Another one, though, I did a project. I love to do projects here at the RU with nonprofit organizations because they have no money for data analysts. And I'm like, my class will do it for free. And so we did one with Pine Tree Legal. And, you know, my students looked at the data and they found, the distribution of how people identified themselves by gender sort of matched the population statistics in terms of male, female, non-binary. These were the check boxes they were using at the time with the data that we had. And we go, oh, that all looks good. And then a couple of my students dived a little deeper into the data and they realized only their Portland office was coding the non-binary. The other offices were not at all coding this, and we're like, ooh, shoot, right? They have a process problem. I don't think, again, there was any intentional malevolence going on. It's just they had a process coding issue that was different across their offices. And so that was surprising because we would not have seen that without diving a little more granular into the data. And so they were able to affect a solution for that process, which is kind of neat, because none of us saw that going in. None of us expected that to be the issue. And so again, it's those little surprises sometimes that really have greater ripples of impact going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Dylan, do you mind if I ask a question of a fellow?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Andrew, in terms of these, reports and these things, the research that you're doing, how do you often publish this? So I'm guessing that clients come to you to solve a particular problem, and usually the output is in the form of a report. What are some of the ways that you publish? Like, I'm interested in looking at, like, if you had a library of this stuff, like I'm interested in the SAT story, but also the one about the juice baseballs. Like, if we wanted to know more, do you have a repository of this research that we could take a look at, or is it kind of spread out just depending on who the client is?
Yeah, it's a little spread out. I mean, one can always reach out to me and I'm always happy to share. I'm pretty transparent. As teaching faculty, much of what I do drives both what I do in the classroom and how I can impact Maine. I mean, the mission of the RU, by the way, it's a university that was spun up to improve the economy of Maine. No other university has this mission to improve the economy of a state. That's why we partner with every single company in this state, nonprofits and for-profit alike. So a lot of mine, I will present often at smaller conferences where I just have to present, so I can avoid writing the scholarly articles, which I don't enjoy doing. But I do a lot of this kind of pet projects, and then I report. I think the baseball one I reported at an internal Northeastern conference this past March. But I'm always happy to share, and they're always fun. Yeah, thanks.
Andrew, have you if you don't mind, I was going to just ask a quick question.
Sure.
Have you looked at, I think the biggest data trove that we all experienced just recently was COVID. And the way that people were talking about data coming out during COVID was just fascinating. And it highlighted to me like the whole concept of flattening the curve and what that actually means in the area under the curve and how that mathematically translated versus how people were communicating that translation is really interesting. And I didn't know if you had looked into that. And I just also wanted to comment that to me, what you're talking about is we need people to be critical thinkers of data. And we need to recognize that just because you see a statistic doesn't mean, and draw a correlation or a causation of that, doesn't mean that it was a correlation or causation. And so, dig deeper and really get into the data, because if you can't get your hands dirty, you're always going to be obstructed by people who can tell great stories that aren't true. So I think it's great learnings, and really we need every person in business to be able to do this because data is becoming so fundamental to every role in business. But
well, and give me one more drum to beat while I have a captive audience. I mean, COVID, obviously, a wealth of data, wonderful, and again, strongly misinterpreted along the way in so many ways. I guess the drum I wanted to beat, you didn't say this, you went in a different direction. We often hear about, oh, and the result was significant, right? You hear this term in science and in research, and people don't know what that means. And generally, and just to throw this out there, here's the 5-minute lesson. Come join my program. I'll teach you all this stuff, right? If something's significant, it means if this happened randomly 20 times, you would get this result one of those 20 times. And so it's unlikely to have happened, right? And because it's unlikely to have happened, we say it's significant. It's a really low bar. It's a really low bar to say something works. It's like playing Dungeons and Dragons and you roll that pure 20, right? It happens. And so a lot of times you get these results that are significant. We had in COVID, people were reporting daily numbers and were like, oh, Wednesday, there were only 5 cases. I guess it's over. And it was really well known. Aroostook County didn't send in their reports till Friday, right? And so they're doing rolling averages or moving averages. And again, we could all be better educated in what these things mean and how to interpret them. And we're probably getting worse, not better. Even while we're getting so much more data to look at. So no, that we could talk about this for hours. This is good stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know, to add on to your significance, the point about significance in data, right? I work in data science, or I do research in private, like data privacy, and so yes, the significance of a data point is pretty relative depending on what you're talking about. So when you say something significant, I mean, you have to make sure you understand the context of why it's significant in order for that to also mean something. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in there. I'm going to kind of skip over a couple questions, just to let you know. But I do want to talk about like what parts of data science do you enjoy and what gravitates you to this field? And this is kind of open to anyone to answer here.
I can go first. I think since I'm the youngest on this panel, I don't know how everybody is on the panel. I think I love data. I graduated from Bayes in May. I'm a math major. I came in with I wanted to really look into econ. I think I was an athlete. I wanted to go the econ route. I think that's pretty conventional. But I realized I was really good at math. I mean, I've been good at math all my life, but I wanted to work with numbers. So my sophomore year, I worked with my career center. You know, I had a minimal role. It's very minimalistic. Just worked in Google Sheets, nothing too crazy. But over that summer, I learned some SQL, a little bit of Python, just get a touch of it. I think Andy brought a good point about lying in data. I took a class my junior year. It was called Calling Bull. It's just the BS in data. It was a great class. Saw a lot of infographics that didn't make a lot of sense, but it's cool to see how data can lie and dictate different things, especially in the media. So as summer, I was abroad. My winter and junior year, I was like, why not apply to Maine Health? So I looked into Maine Health and I applied for the community health intern position. I got the position. And when I started, I was like, wow, like it's very daunting. I think the corporate environment is daunting to some people. When you come in, people are dressed up and everything like that. And I was like, wow, like I don't know what I want to do in my life. You know, I just had no idea. So I started working with data. And I think big data is one of the things that is a buzzword. It's pretty popular, relevant now. It's a lot of data, especially in healthcare. PHI, a lot of, HIPAA, it's pretty overwhelming. You see these huge data sets, huge different identifiers, different just terminology that you'll never really understand or comprehend. But I think just working through data was amazing and seeing that you're helping out in your own way, I always wanted to help out society, but seeing that even I'm doing things on my computer and still helping out made me like feel like I was making a difference. Because I had no idea what I wanted to do after my sophomore year. I played football and I was like, I need to figure out my career. But I think data, working at Maine Health for that internship and with Maine Catalyst as well, being able to network with different people in IT and tech helped me a lot. I think it's overwhelming at first, but I think data is amazing field, especially that you have an impact, even though you feel like it's minimal, it's huge. Working with data sets, being able to send out to providers, you're working with different teams, like you're making a huge impact. Even though you feel small,
Yeah, exactly. Does anyone else have some input on like what gravitates you to data science or working with data? You're muted again, Matt.
Yeah, I would add just the, we've talked a little bit about this already. The storytelling aspect of it can be fascinating. But I think we're also learning it can be extremely dangerous if you don't do that investigatory work that John was talking about there. Where I think a society of just clicking on headlines, or maybe not even, maybe you just read the headline and then you're going to turn to your friend and be like, guess what just happened? Blah, blah, blah. All you did was read the headline. You didn't click on the article. I think data is going to be along the same lines, depending on which, where you are and where you're getting that data. It's going to be slanted towards what they want you to believe. So understand that and do your own kind of forensics, formulate your own opinion. And just, I think somebody mentioned this earlier, be as informed as possible. And again, you can do that by collecting the right data that's telling you the right story. So I'm drawn to kind of the storytelling aspect of that. We're taking this raw data into kind of actionable insights. The final step in my product that I deal with is in an ROI report. It's an insight generation report. And that's where all the value is. That's where our AI is recommending some suggestions on, how to fill revenue gaps for municipalities, for how to cut back on waste. Maybe they're spending too much money in a particular area. They have too many resources dedicated to a program that nobody cares about or nobody uses. That's what my tool is going in and finding out, and then informing the mayor that, hey, you're buying way too many pencils for the police department. Like, did you know that you're spending $30,000 a year on pencils and the police write in markers or pens or whatever? So those types of insights we're providing in that report, and that's all through the data that is being passed through these various, software channels. So being able to tell that story and then get up in front of a demo and show it to the mayor of Kansas City, which is a true story, happened last week, and have them just be like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. That's meaningful stuff. And that's the part that you can really see, Jamil was just talking about feeling the effects of the data. That's how you can, feel those effects. In government software, that can mean helping thousands of citizens accessing critical services, or it can mean the municipality themselves saving, themselves millions of dollars, which in turn means there's no property tax increase for folks in the city of South Portland this year, or whatever it may be. Those are decisions that you can make with this information ahead of time. It's powerful, and the story, but again, be aware of the story and what it is, where it's coming from, and do your own investigation. Be as informed as possible. Don't just go based off of what somebody's telling you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Data is always biased in some sort of way, so you have to understand where that bias is to make a informed decision.
I was just
I want to
gonna
go.
add
Okay, go ahead.
just real quick that, so like I said, I worked with a lot of manufacturers, and data can be extremely impactful in a manufacturing plant. And to make a manufacturing plant more efficient, to improve the output, to speed the amount of product that's produced, there's a lot of downtime. That's not necessarily, it's waste, but it's downtime that's needed. And so if you can reduce that downtime, then you can produce more product. And data, the good and leading companies are using data to lead them to the problem, because they don't even know where the problem is. They know that they'd like it to produce more, but they use data to guide them to the problem, and then they use data to guide them to solving the problem, and then they use data to ensure moving forward that the problem continues to be solved and they don't resort back to where they were. And so it just provides this really powerful and impactful capability that companies can use to just be more impactful, more profitable, and drive greater business. And that's what we take a lot of interest in and pride in, is that the companies that we're helping are global pharmaceutical, automotive, food and beverage companies. So it's exciting, the projects they're working on.
Yeah, and they always provide a great amount of impact. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I could just hop on. I mean, we got some great stories here, and this is the beauty, right? I mean, I talked about the dangers a little bit and to be aware, but when everybody's aligned, right, then as long as you have the good data people and you trust them and you know they're working in that same alignment, I mean, that's where huge wins happen. One of the projects we've done here, you can actually look this up in the Press Herald. It was an article a year or so ago, but we did a project with Lifelight that, you know, flies the helicopters and saves lives. And we've done 2 projects with them, in fact. And again, they're like, we have lots of data and we don't know what to do with it. And the question they had for us is, we have 3 sites. We have a Bangor, we have a Lewiston, and we have a Sanford. And they go, can you look at all our flights and tell us if our bases are in the right places? And we fed back, you know, after about 6 weeks of work. You know, our students came back and they said, all right, well, here's our recommendations. Is Bangor is very busy. That is your hub. That's where the magic happens. Lewiston, it supports Bangor when Bangor is too busy. And Sanford's really not doing much, right? Sanford is sort of replacing Lewiston when Lewiston's doing Bangor. And you would be much better served by putting your 3rd site in Presque Isle. And think of it, it's because where the hospitals are, right? And these, you know, if you're in Sanford, the hospitals are not far away. Lifelight is not a huge value add, but Aroostook County getting down to Bangor, EMCC, or getting to Portland is huge. And then, talking surprising results, they said, and we know you can't do this, but if you could move your Presque Isle to Booth Bay Harbor during the summer, that would maximize your impact as a Lifelight organization. And when they're all aligned and they're like, we suspected some of those things, but we'd never seen the data analysis that said, you know, kind of our intuitions, you know. So it's a big cost to move, so I don't think they're gonna move their locations anytime soon. But just think about what you get when everyone's aligned. And I mean, you can obviously tell I get giddy just kind of thinking about these kind of solutions. They're so exciting and so much fun. That's what I had to say.
Thank you for your input. That's actually pretty insightful. I guess to step back a little bit, was there? This is going to go towards John, but did you always want to work in data science, or did you accidentally stumble into this field? Looking at your past history, I'm assuming it's the latter. But
Yeah, so my background, I have a mechanical engineering degree, and enjoyed working with manufacturing companies, but found that technology companies, I'll say, are more they're faster paced. There's a lot more they're you know, newer technologies are constantly changing, and I found that really interested me, but applied to manufacturing. So my career has always been in how do we apply new technologies into manufacturing, and of course data is like the core of that, especially today. How do we leverage the data? How do we collect more data? How do we contextualize and make that data usable? And then how do we use it? And so it's been that's how I grew up in it. And I grew up in a company, or actually my family here in the Portland area had a small manufacturing plant. So I kind of grew up in the manufacturing environment and then went from there. But yeah, it's leveraging technology to drive manufacturing has always really interested me and excited me.
I think that kind of segues into my next question for you, because like you obviously co-founded HighByte, right? And so I kind of want to know what the challenge that you saw in data science and you wanted to solve with it, or to solve with your company. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's a great question. So prior to HighByte, co-founding HighByte, I had worked at a company called Kepware Technologies, and I'd worked there for 8 years. They're also here in Portland. They were acquired by PTC back in 2016, but they were also in kind of in the data space. But what we saw as technology was evolving is that there are all these new technologies for using data and a lot more applications for using data. And we saw that the infrastructure to do that was not in place. No one was really working on it. They had, you know, new cloud infrastructure and new analytic approaches. Of course, now we see ChatGPT kind of takes it to a whole new level, but the delivery of data and the usability of data was really challenging manufacturing. And, you know, we had deep knowledge of manufacturing plants and some of the challenges there, In many cases, the data is not well structured, is not well organized for the use cases people are trying to solve. So myself, two other co-founders decided to create a company to really solve that problem, to figure out how we could put together an application that could be used by manufacturing companies to make data much more accessible and usable. And that's what we've been doing for about since 2018 now.
That sounds like a fun journey.
It's been quite the
Going,
journey, yeah. It's exciting. We've now got about 42 employees, company's headquartered here in Portland, and probably about 2/3 of them are in the greater Portland area. So it's exciting.
that's
We have a lot of fun.
that's actually quite a small team of people compared to what is expected based on the impact that I can see that you provide based off your website. So that's pretty impressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
To follow up a little bit, Jamil, I kind of want to ask you a question about like when you started working in this data science role, this data analyst role, was there any learning curves that you weren't expecting, or anything that kind of challenged you getting into it?
Yeah, I mean, at first, I think for me, I really kind of honed into Excel. I think someone asked the question for the Q&A was because you know, for a young professional. I think my biggest misconception coming in was like, I need to know all these coding skills, be a proficient coder. And all I really knew was some SQL, Python, and I was pretty good at Excel, but I think that I could learn more about Excel. I think there's a lot more to Excel that I didn't really know about, or like the Power Queries, your Power BI. And I came in and I was like, I definitely know it all. Like, I kind of had a hubris because I've worked an internship before using data, but using Sheets wasn't really Excel. I think the learning curve was just that you can always learn on the job. And I think it's not really a curve, it's something I learned. I think that I was kind of like, I had to come in with a certain amount of skills, a certain amount, like just proficiency to so I can be Excel. But I think that learning on the job is something that I learned. You can learn from your teammates, you can learn from your managers. I think a lot of that time at work, that there's a lot of time that's allocated for free time. I think people don't realize that you have a lot of time to yourself. And during those hours, I would just spend just refining my skills and cultivating new skills. I think that's a curve. I think that you can always learn more on the job, learn to make things more efficient. If there's a certain project that they want to reinvigorate, you can find a way to make it more efficient, faster, and that's what data is, finding faster ways for efficiency, to help society or help a certain cause.
Yeah. I'm going to speed things along a little bit because we are kind of running out of time here. But I did want to ask John this question, which is, what misconceptions do people have about data science that you'd like to clear up?
Well, where I struggle is kind of the title, data science and data scientists. I really feel like everyone should understand data. We need to in today's society, both professionally and in our personal lives, because data is so critical. And so, whether it's reading your heart rate and understanding what that means and the impacts of that, and just because your watch says that your heart rate stopped doesn't mean that you're dead. It may mean that your watch is just not sensing anymore. To being able to interpret data that you see in a financial report or wherever. So I often say to people, if we need data scientists in order to use data, then data missed the mark. We need tools and we need capabilities and we need smart professionals such that the professionals can use the data and can use the tools. So I think it's just really important that we get away from, I think data science is important, but data scientists should only be used by like actuarial companies. And general business needs to figure out how to leverage data well without that. So I just think we all need to be very comfortable with data.
And if I could just hop on John's answer there, because I see that as well with people coming into our program, is that about 1/3 of the people that join our data analytics program don't have any real desire to be a data analyst. They want to be conversant because the world around them, I have somebody who is a journalist And he's like, I want to be able to call BS when I'm talking to business leaders and they're coming out with these stats and various things, and I want to understand it better than they do. And I have somebody who works for Unum, and he's like, my team does all the data analytics. I want to be able to understand when they communicate with me. So I can ask the right questions. So this becomes a big part. We're still going to always have data analytics teams like Jamil is on, but you're going to have distributed data experts. Every team is going to have people that know data. And so it's in everyone's interest to get at least a baseline. One of the things we're doing here is every employee at Bangor Savings Bank is getting trained by the RU in basic data analytics. They're not going deep, but they're just learning how to think about it, how to talk about it, how to ask questions, because as John said, this is one of the fundamental 21st century skills.
It's actually one thing that we see in manufacturing is it's what holds us back, or it's what holds our customers back, is that, of course, in manufacturing, you tend to have an older employee base, right? The average age is much older than in other industries, and the challenge is that those people weren't trained in working with data, and so it really holds people back. And I think as people turn over, the good news is that even the average engineer coming out of school doesn't have to be a computer scientist or a data scientist, and they're still learning Python and they're still using a lot of the tool sets to analyze data, and that's great because we need more of that out there. So I think it holds back a lot of industries, and for that matter, rural environments and states and whatnot. But technology is here, and we need to figure out how to use it.
Agreed. Yeah. And then I guess to wrap this all up, we're kind of getting into the Q&A time a little bit, but do you have any final advice or words to give? And this is open to anyone.
My only advice would be to get comfortable with data and, start using tools and start thinking about whether it's personal data on your smartphone or business data that you're involved in. Start working with, Excel, as Jamil was talking about, it can be very basic and it can be very, very powerful. And there's lots of tools even beyond that, but it's a great way to start.
And I'll go ahead. I'll give everyone a project. I'm a professor, so I give homework. So everyone's got a homework project right now, because it's got to be fun when you start. You want to make it fun. It's got to be engaging. So everybody can go ahead, go on Spotify and download their data. Right? It'd take a day or two to get your data sets. You'll get a bunch of Excel files, and you can open up and just exploring how much time am I spending listening to Spotify? Who do I listen to the most? Right? Do I have changes in patterns? And it's like an onion. There are some easy things on the top, and then you can just peel off layers and discover more and more. And that's going to get you sort of jazzed up about data. And then maybe you take a course online, or you come to me and take one course, and then you're better. Right? And then maybe you take a second course and you're even better. And it's just a progression to go as far as you want. But even a little bit makes you super powerful.
That's a really great piece of advice. Like, also a really fun project, nonetheless. We do have some questions in the Q&A. I see that you guys have been typing away and answering a lot of the questions. There's one that's still open, and I figured we could maybe try to discuss it a little bit. There's a student at Maine Law who's curious to know how does everyone work with lawyers, and how can lawyers best support the work that you do in data science? This is a tough one because I work in data privacy, so I also have to work with lawyers quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's pretty broad, right? I think you already nailed it. I mean, there are so many different kinds of lawyers and what they might need data for, right? I mean, in Jamil, the lawyers at Maine Health trying to support HIPAA and rules there, and how do we make data secure, versus somebody trying to prosecute a crime based on stats. There was a famous case in England where lawyers should have talked to some stat people, where they prosecuted somebody on the basis of them having 2 children die of SIDS. one, and then 3 years later a second, and they said, what's the likelihood of that happening? And they did bad math, and they convicted somebody when it was just horrific luck, right? It was horrifically bad luck by the person, and it was eventually overturned. But I mean, so many different ways, and I wish lawyers would reach out more to take data-based approaches to some of their problems.
Yeah, and I know for me, who does like some data privacy type stuff, understanding the regulations, because obviously I've read a lot of data, like actual law files, and a lot of it could be legalese to us, right? And not understanding how to comply to legal requirements is a tough one. And so understanding what's the best way to anonymize our data so that it does comply to laws, I think it'll also be a different angle to that question too. So some of the other questions that were answered via text, but I wonder if we wanted to go into them at all. One of the questions I really wanted to ask about, because I think you answered this already in chat, Andy, but what is your favorite thing people use data to lie about? I think that's a really fun one because we just talked a lot about how data can both tell the truth but also can lie. So
again, I'll echo this. The sports thing is fun because nobody gets offended. It's just a fun back and forth. So it's a fun place to land. I mean, but really I like to use the stuff they lie about because it's hilarious, right? There's one media organization that I won't name, but just makes up bad stuff. Like they could hire good people and make compelling arguments for a lot of the things, but they don't. And they just put up things that are ridiculous. And then there are other organizations, and I will highlight this media organization. The New York Times invests a lot in having good data visualizations, in having comprehensible data stuff. It doesn't mean everything they say is always true. You got to still dig deep. But it's super compelling when you see someone really invest in doing data right and it's in the public eye. So I like that as well when they do tell the truth.
if there's any more questions, feel free to put in the Q&A. If not, I do have one more question from my list that I might go and ask since we have some time. And that is like, what emerging trends or technologies do you see in data science that you're most excited about? And how do you see the field evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? And this is open to anyone.
I think it's kind of controversial, but I think AI. I mean, people can have their different takes on AI. I think automation could be seen as either infiltrating or can encroach on different industries. I know I read a report. This is actually data. 30% of the entry-level jobs are getting kind of consumed by AI automation, which people might feel like AI is destroying jobs. I feel like for me, you can either leverage AI in your position and utilize it to optimize your job, or you can use it. You can see it as a threat. I think AI is only a threat if you use AI to use like. I think school is a good example. People use AI to get through school, but they don't use AI to like learn. They use AI to complete, and like I think like if you use AI to learn, it's a whole different ballgame. For example, you want to learn how to code, you ask AI, like, can you give me some coding questions? You have an interview for like, can you give me some questions to practice on coding, or can you help me on this project? What do I need to do next? I think people can leverage their businesses and leverage their positions with AI rather than seeing it as a infiltrating device. Because I think that the human experience is so unique that AI can replicate, and that's the thing that people need to realize, that in data and these a lot of data centric fields, that AI can replicate emotion, can replicate social interaction, interpersonal connections, and that's what the humans indulge in. But you can leverage AI to help optimize and build your skills. So I think the perception that AI is very controversial, and that nuance is based on how to use AI in your position. I see AI as something that can help me build through my job, and also by that I know that they can't replicate that human connection or interaction, and that's why I feel like my job can stay.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we also see AI, at some level, industry's been using AI for a long time with machine learning models, but most of the general public had no idea that was considered AI. But with ChatGPT and LLMs, all of a sudden in the last 2 years, it's become front and center. But it's continuing to move really, really fast. And now, so, if 2 years ago, everyone was talking about LLMs, now everyone's talking about agents and agentic AI, which is kind of in my primitive understanding is kind of the creating very small, highly targeted services or agents that are focused in a specific area that read data and then respond to that data and are able to make decisions based on what they do. And we see that as a huge opportunity. We see that as a huge opportunity within manufacturing. So you could have literally an agent thinking about, for instance, maintenance of a piece of equipment. You would have one on every single piece of machinery. So instead of having one maintenance tech for the entire plant, you've got a small little AI agent for every single one of them, but you still have a maintenance tech who's responding to all of those. It's just giving them a lot more data. So it's kind of like having, I like to refer to it as kind of having the Jarvis of that Iron Man had, right? Where he had this person, they made him look like a person, but it was feeding him information. It was giving him information before he even asked. It was also responding to his requests and being able to provide him information very quickly and being able to take off some of the minutia and so that he didn't have to worry about it. And really that's kind of where we're going. We're trying to make people effectively superhuman by providing them additional technology tools in the form of AI agents. So it's exciting. There's a lot going on there, and I would certainly recommend people to get familiar with it because it's coming like a freight train. So you'd rather be on it than mowed over by it.
Yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
echo that. I mean, AI, it's here. It's changing every 6 weeks. It's getting better in many ways. But I think we can look historically that technology comes and it changes things, right? I'm kind of bummed because I grew up as a computer science guy, coding all weekend long, and that was fun for me. And that's going to become less of a skill that you need. It's like, ice making or whatever it was, the people who used to cut ice, right? I mean, but new things evolve, new things come into play, and humans have always been necessary. There's always a level where humans need to operate at, and I especially don't see that going away in the realm of AI. It's just our role is going to change. It's going to get to a better place where we get to be that critical thinker and do things. So you should, we don't think math is bad because we have calculators that can do multiplication for us. But even then, we still need to understand what multiplication is. We can't blindly accept the answers AI gives. Even when it gets really good, we can't blindly accept. We got to evaluate it, as Jamil was saying, sort of from the human factors side. So I would encourage everyone, if they're not using AI 10 times a day, start using AI 10 times a day to get comfortable with it. And, and sort of evolve from there as a collaborator with AI, not as a replacement, as Jamil was saying.
Absolutely. To bring up to something that John said too, is like John was mentioning how AI has been around for decades. I think some of the first papers in machine learning actually came out in the 90s. So
earlier than that.
Oh, even like you say even earlier. I was looking at like I've been reading a few of those
neural
papers.
networks came out in the 70s. Neural networks came out in the 70s, and that's the underlying structure that these large language models have. In fact, the guy, Jeff Winton, who got the Nobel Prize, he's been doing this since like 81, I think.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's been around forever. It's just now becoming very known. As that's something I wanted to bring up. Someone did ask a question, and in the final minute we have, what other jobs/roles do you think data science skills could transfer well to?
I would challenge people to find jobs where they don't transfer well. It just becomes a base level. You need to be able to speak. You need to be able to understand data. It's just becoming a base level skill in most businesses today and in most jobs today.
Yeah, I fully agree. Even in my role as a software engineer, I use data science every day. Depending on the projects I'm working on, I'm working with massive data sets. So yeah, I fully agree. And I think that's about all we have for time today. I don't know if you have anything extra to add, Ava, but I think we can end it here. Thank you, panelists, Andy, Jamil, John, and Matt for joining us. And that's about all I have.
Nice to meet y'all. See you now.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
No problem.